do they behave this way? Yes, the people that you watch here on our stage are men. Deanna, is it hard to believe? Mrs. Lee, Rhonda, and Angela, not their real names. And look how thrilled this audience is to be here. Can you explain this?
No, that comes out.
240 shows a year we do, and you choose this one to come.
Yeah, right.
Let me tell you everything I know. It'll take me about 10 seconds. Most cross-dressers are not, repeat, not gay. Most cross-dressers are male. Not all, but most. Cross-dressers come from all walks of life and all economic strata of our society. The guy next to you in the boardroom may be wearing women's underwear. You probably don't want to mention that at the stockholders' meeting. Why do they do this? Variously, cross-dressers tell us they do it because they want to. They like to do it. Cross-dressers will also tell you that there's no picnic having this inclination. There's a good deal of pain, many will tell you, accompanying this behavior. How do you tell your spouse? And what will the kids say? Cross-dressers have no interest in changing their bodies. That is to say, don't confuse the cross-dresser or transvestite with the transsexual. That's the person who wants surgery to change his own or her own anatomy. That condition does not exist in the people about whom we speak today. Reminding you again that all of the people on the stage are male. Some are married, some are divorced, some live with spouses who are understanding. Some will tell you about the painful reality of the family discovering their interest in this behavior. Yes, it does clobber not a few marriages. But there are marriages that survive. This is what Daddy wants to do. Daddy's a good boy. Daddy brings home the check, doesn't drink. Daddy is faithful to Mommy, and if he wants to do this, who's hurt? And there are even a few spouses who will tell you that the marriage has improved since he came out of the closet with this behavior. And some families accompany Daddy in full female dress to social occasions. Some say they dress up once a month, others more often. And somewhere there's a psychiatrist who will explain this to us. And we'll be back in just a moment. On the stage, there are two women. Can you tell which ones they are?
You sure?
Show the picture, Brian. Which ones are the women? Pan right, if you will, please. Is a woman? Is that a woman? Oh, you're so smart, you. Is that a woman? Where's the other woman? Oh, come on. You're right. The women on our stage are on the end. Bonnie is the wife of a cross-dresser on the left. Phyllis Levy is a sex therapist and happens to be a talk show host on WLS radio in my old hometown of Chicago. How do you feel about this? Yes?
I hate to get all dolled up in heels and nylons. Where do you find shoes like that?
Shop around,
Wild
wherever
pair.
you can find them.
If this is not genetic, what are the psychological factors that make you dress as you do?
We
No
don't know.
one knows.
We don't know if it's genetic or not. There are several theories on why or how a person becomes a cross-dresser. Some think it's environmental, some do think it's genetic, but it has yet to be proved what the reason is why we...
You're a manager with a major communications company.
Yes.
A large communications company.
Yes.
Do they know at work?
No. No need for them to know at work.
And how do you feel that... The audience wants to know if if the boss will see you, would he recognize you? You think he would?
I hope not.
He doesn't watch television in the
I hope
daytime,
not.
maybe.
Better be at work.
Bonnie, let me chat with you. You are the wife of a cross-dresser.
Right. This is my husband, Rhonda.
How'd you find out, Bonnie?
About 3 years ago, after we'd been married for 7 years, Rhonda came to me one day and said, I have something I need to show you. Took me back into his office, pulled out a trunk full of clothes and said, I wear these. These are my clothes. And it was a trunk full of women's clothes.
And you cried for a week.
No, actually I didn't. I stood there with my mouth hanging open and didn't say much of anything for a while. And then we talked. And then we cried together for a couple of days. We talked some more. And I think if I had to make a judgment on that whole episode, I would say that it has brought us far closer together than we ever were before.
How long had you been married at the time of this revelation?
7 years.
And kids?
Yeah, 2 preschoolers.
Now, when you discovered this, and as you look back on your husband's behavior, was there ever, did you wonder, was there some sort of mysterious feature of his personality?
Did I ever suspect cross-dressing? No, not in my wildest imagination. But I did realize that we weren't communicating very well, and that it wasn't the kind of relationship I wanted to have. We weren't close. We didn't share everything. We lived in the same house. We parented the same children. We went to the same activities, but somehow the closeness just wasn't there. And after Rhonda came out of the closet, I said to myself, my God, this man has shared his entire self with me, his entire being. How much closer can you be? Yeah. And our communication has improved so much since then. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Cross-dressers quite literally come out of the closet, don't they?
Yes.
Well, for the first 32 years of my life, this was a secret.
Do the children know, and how do they feel about it?
Say it again, please.
Do the children know, and how do they feel about it?
Our children are so small that, in my estimation, they're not reliable enough to keep this discreet, so they do not yet know. They will when they're old enough.
I have teenagers, a boy and a girl. They both know. My son has difficulty dealing with it, but he accepts it. And my daughter loves it. She lent me her makeup mirror.
We recommend, though, that not be done in front of the children or around the children.
Right.
But they should know. Rather they'd find out from you than detect it or discover some other way.
That's what I was going to ask. I was going to ask when you plan to tell your children, and if you have a certain time schedule for that.
Well, I guess just at a time when I feel that they are mature enough to understand this is a, let's say, a family matter, and that they're protected enough that they don't run the risk of getting some negative feedback.
They also have to be old enough that they can handle it themselves. We do not want to put a stress or a burden psychologically on them for having to keep, quote-unquote, the family secret.
Over here.
I would like to know at night when you're getting ready for bed, do you both wear lingerie? Or when you're dressing to go out, how do you dress?
That's the second most common asked question. The first is, what bathroom do we use? To answer your question, that depends on the night.
I like simple acrylic nightgowns and usually wear pantyhose.
And
no lace.
That's how Rhonda goes to bed. And I sleep with Rhonda. But I make love to my husband, and my husband does not wear negligees to bed, if you make the distinction.
I think that one of the misconceptions is that cross-dressers dress with some regularity, like every day, and that's not true. You will find an amazing range of behaviors. Some cross-dressers will dress completely only once a month. Some cross-dressers will go to bed in lingerie every night, and in between that, you have an amazing variety of behaviors.
Takes too long to put on the war paint.
How long did it take you to get ready this morning?
About an hour.
2 hours.
2 hours.
2 hours.
Better than an hour.
Yeah. Are you there? I'm glad you waited. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Go ahead, please.
I think it's just totally ridiculous that these men have to dress like this. They have a serious psychological problem. They must think it's Halloween all the time. I mean, if my husband ever dressed like that, I would be totally appalled.
They don't hurt anybody. You know about that.
Yes, I understand that.
They don't peek in windows.
But
They don't molest children.
how do you know that?
Well, how do you know that about talk show hosts?
How do
No,
we
I
know the
seriously
caller
don't think
does
you'd
not do
molest a
that?
child.
How do we know anybody? Yeah, but they don't. They're not surprised by your.
No, not at all. That's a very common reaction, and I think it stems from misunderstanding of the nature of the situation. My husband and these other ladies on stage, they did not choose to do this. It is an urge that comes from within that starts in childhood. I choose to jog. It's my way of releasing tension, of enjoying, of physical fitness, of all the things that I get from this particular activity that I choose. My husband did not choose to do this. It's a compulsion. But it's a harmless compulsion, and that's the thing that needs to be made clear.
That's a really important
It's
point,
benign.
that we didn't choose this. This behavior was set by the time we were 4 years old.
And if
And if
nothing
anybody
else,
out here is not a cross-dresser now, they're not going to be a cross-dresser when they leave here.
It's
They're
not
not going to
something you
say,
can
wow,
catch.
I like what he looks like, and I'm going to go do it.
You can't catch it then.
No.
It's not contagious,
You can't
no.
catch it, and if you have it, you can't get rid of it. So.
I was wondering if the guests on the panel, while you are dressed as women, do you feel a sense of higher esteem or self-respect in yourself? As opposed to
For
being
me,
dressed as a
for me,
man?
when I'm dressed, I feel more relaxed and comfortable with myself. I feel I'm expressing myself more completely as an individual, and I also enjoy the fashion and the color and spectacularness of it. You know, men's clothes are coarse in texture. They're rather drab in color, and typically we're not allowed to wear a lot of jewelry. Wouldn't it be great if you could just wear jewelry and
Most
walk around?
cross-dressers go through a period where they do feel guilty, but the guilt is basically from the hiding and having to deceive people. After we get over that feeling of guilt, we don't feel bad about the way we look, the way we're dressed. I'm sure we get disappointed if we don't create the illusion we're trying to create, but no.
Do any of you have any sisters, and did you wear their clothes as you were growing up?
Sisters, mothers, cousins, wherever we can get the clothes when you're 8, 9, 10, 11
I
years
have
old.
several sisters, and I wore my older sister's clothing as I was growing up. In fact, that's where my first clothing
That's
came
another
from.
benefit of having a husband who's a cross-dresser. I actually have 2 wardrobes.
Doubles your wardrobe.
Sir.
Phil, Phil, you started the program by indicating none of these people are homosexual, but you also indicated that some of you have children. Okay, how do you cope with this 10 years from today, assume your son and your daughter drift into the homosexual end of this? How, because actually...
You think it'll create gayness in the kids?
I would like to think so from the
I
standpoint...
think it's the other way around. I think
because
that there
someone,
are...
my opinion, someone is dressed like them. We're all assuming, until you clarified it,
No, I
that
think...
there's a thin line. Okay, you made a decision because you're a much older person, true. But you had a kid 4 or 5, and they 8, 9 years...
make him effeminate.
You have to understand that the origins of this behavior are from our childhood or even prior to birth. I'm talking age 4 or 5 is when I started putting on women's clothing, and it's inherently been with me through my whole life.
My boys are 16 and 17, and they're, quote, masculine boys. I mean, and they're into mechanics, they're into sports. I mean,
How
but
does
what's the
anybody
difference?
know?
If they were, I hope my mind is broad enough to accept whatever lifestyle they will choose.
It wouldn't make any difference whether they turned out to be gay or not. We'd still love them. They're our children.
I think that's important. If they see in their parents, whether their parents be you or their parents be us, if children see in their parents tolerance and acceptance of all different lifestyles, of all different colors, of all different creeds, then they're going to be accepting of themselves.
There's another point to be made. That is that there are boys with this urge in their lives, and they live in a big city. The only role model they have for men dressing as women are drag queens, is the gay community. And there are people like me who, if they didn't watch out, could wind up being just as guilt-ridden, just as unhappy, just as miserable, just as desperate as some farm boy out in the Midwest, thinking he's gay and hating every minute of it, but liking the occasional times he can dress up as a woman. You can push people into the gay world by misunderstanding what this urge is.
You're Lee.
I'm Lee.
You work for the federal government.
Yep.
You know, you should understand, too, that as our male selves, we're very masculine individuals. In fact, studies show that we tend to overreact with our masculinity. I was very accomplished in sports in high school, and we tend to pursue careers which are male-dominated and status symbols as far as careers go.
Yes, ma'am.
Could this be cultural? I mean, does every culture have a cross-dresser?
The only one that probably doesn't are the Eskimos, because they all have to unrobe when they get inside the igloos. It's 80 degrees in there. Otherwise, the American Indians do it. They do it in India. They do it in China. The Chinese theater has always had men playing the women's roles. They do it in Japan,
historically,
the Elizabethan
you can go back
theater.
hundreds of years and find examples of this in history. So this is nothing new.
Millennia.
Yeah.
In some cultures, too, the cross-dresser is a revered third sex and has a very distinct role, so that it is not a separate and secret behavior.
I'm glad you waited. Hi.
Hi. Phil, I was going to make a real smart remark when I first came on the air. I was going to say that those are the ugliest women I've ever seen, but I've been listening, and I feel sorry for these men, and I got a couple questions. I want to know, number one, they say they didn't choose to be the way they are. They are making a conscious choice every day to be the way they are. They're choosing to hurt their wives. They're choosing to hurt their children because they want to meet their personal fantasies. And I notice nobody wants to experience guilt. What is wrong with guilt? Guilt, you should feel guilty when you want to dress up like a woman. You should fight it. You should stop.
I spent the first 32 years of my life feeling guilty, and I'm glad now that for the last three and a half years, I can feel much better about it.
Rhonda, has suicide occurred to any of you early on?
No. Sometimes.
I thought about it as a child.
Because you were this weirdo who wanted to...
I realized I was different, and I thought it would just be easier to eliminate the problem.
It's incomplete, isn't it, the discussion about this issue, without detailing the... I assume we have had suicides as a result of...
Oh, I'm sure. It's very difficult to document them because most cross-dressers are not out of the closet.
Right.
So if a cop comes in, for instance, and finds ladies' lingerie, the connection is not necessarily made.
Yeah. Hi, I'm glad you waited. Go ahead.
Hi, Phil. I just wanted to say that I think what they do is fine because I raid my boyfriend's closet all the time. So, what the heck?
Are your boyfriend's clothes?
Sure. They look great.
But you don't see this as a particularly a psychiatric kind of behavior.
Not at all. I just think they find women's clothes attractive.
Is your boyfriend a cross-dresser, or she just wears his male
No,
clothes?
she just wears. I don't think she's just saying it's a...
Oh, okay.
So you're a tolerant person, I think, is what
I think it's great.
What's interesting is that the first two callers, who happen to be women, I think are threatened somewhat. And that's the problem that I had with my spouse. When this came out and we talked about it, she was really threatened with the idea of me wearing women's clothes, possibly being gay, losing the man that she married. And there's a lot of
the other woman
fears
turns out
that
to be
go
your
there.
husband.
Yeah.
How do you go shopping for your clothes? Do you dress as a woman or
I
go in
don't.
as a man?
I dress as a man.
Can you try on women's clothes?
I don't. I know the sizes.
Take it home and
with
but after trial and error, you
We
do
go
know what
shopping
size.
together.
With Bonnie and I go out as my male self, and we look through the clothes racks together. If I see something that I'm interested in, I ask her to put it on.
I know just how big it has to be on me
If
to
it's too big
fit.
for her a certain way, I know it'll fit.
But there are some cross-dressers who do go out as women, do go shopping, and do successfully buy clothing. One experience I had, and it was about 8 years ago, I went into a store, picked out something, and went into the changing room. I went all the way down the end. There must have been 12 rooms to get away from everybody, just to change. And sure enough, I was 3 rooms away, and somebody had to come to that one. Fortunately, I wasn't detected, but, you know, we do things to get our clothes in whatever manner.
Yes.
If this condition started in childhood, what did your mothers think about it? Or did they recognize that you had a serious problem?
I guess, unfortunately, at this time, my parents don't know. Usually, children who are cross-dressers are very well aware of their differences, and they overreact, the male being very masculine. And this is true of the behavior, so we're good disguisers or maskers of our feminine behavior, our feminine side.
Personally, I think if my husband came home and told me he was a cross-dresser, I think I'd kill him. And I believe that you didn't go for counseling. You know,
We did.
Oh, okay.
We did. In fact, we spent about a year together in counseling, and Rhonda went for an additional year. But I think the basis for our relationship is love and trust and friendship. I fell in love with a human being with certain personality traits and certain characteristics. And some of the softer side of my husband, his gentleness, his tenderness, his understanding of me and my problems, comes from the fact that he has, part of this is his nature. So it was the individual I loved, and I simply had to adjust my frame of reference to that individual.
There are many other things the husbands do. They beat their wives, they're alcoholics, they're into dope, they are professional criminals, whatever it is. There are lots of things, and this is a lot milder
but then again,
than things
your
that ruin
husband is
many marriages.
providing for your household. Your husband loves you. He's probably going to be a great father. You love that man for what he
I mean,
is.
it doesn't look. I mean, how do people react to you in public?
Understand, too, that there is no medical cure or solution for this, and people who have studied this phenomena have found out that we are better off as people and individuals learning to live with and express the phenomena. In fact, many of the people studying this area feel that we're more well-adjusted this way. Once we've come out into public, we are much more well-adjusted.
The problem is, by the time you get over the guilt trip, you're too old to do it as well as you'd like to.
And then you got to realize we are the exception to the rule of the cross-dresser. We are here in public. We are in front of the media. Most cross-dressers are in the closet or in private groups where they cross-dress only in the privacy of their home or in these protected groups.
When you
like
read
our
about someone in the paper, or you read a book like Renee Richards wrote and so on, you're reading about the extreme cases within a wide range of human behavior. The quote-unquote well-adjusted, normal, happily married family man with kids in Midwest suburbia somewhere doesn't get written up anywhere. He's simply out there, and you don't know about him.
I'm glad you waited. Hi.
Yes, hi, Phil. I have a question. How come women can dress like men and act macho, and the society can accept that, and on the other hand, men cannot dress like women, and everyone rejects that idea?
May I say that one of the things that gets missed in these kinds of discussions, because when we look at these women, they shock the senses, and so we're responding to what goes on the surface, is the fact that there is really a female character inside. It is not just the dressing. These are women when they're dressed. They have a female character. Please, as you begin to understand this, keep it in mind.
Don't miss this young man's point. I think he's saying that we have a double standard in that.
No, because when women put on jeans and a sweatshirt or whatever, they're not trying to create the illusion of a man.
That's right.
When we put on our female attire, we're trying to create a female.
Yes, you are. But I think that this young man is suggesting, and he's not the first to do so, that...
Aren't the spring fashions now coming out with sequins for men and more colors for men?
No, but I think what he's saying
We're getting there.
This will only take a moment. Males, not all, but many, have an insecurity that runs mysteriously throughout their whole sexuality. And that when some of these males see this, they recoil at the thought of the millimeter away they are from perhaps this kind of behavior. I think that's one of the suggestions.
And perhaps if society gave us more license, and I mean us being all human beings, to dress as we choose and to not dictate that a particular fabric is feminine or a particular style is masculine or a particular way of sitting or behaving is genderal in some sense, but simply a matter of human behavior and androgynous, then I think many of the people who feel the pressure to hide in the closet wouldn't have to be in the closet.
I just got a question. The woman there on the left, you're a lady, right? On the left,
yes.
okay.
I like to think so.
My point is,
Bonnie is my wife.
You don't want anybody to know who you are, right? Your husband. But now you're on television. Now you're going to put you two together.
Yeah, there is a certain element of risk as far as occupation and friends and relationships go. Last thing you should understand is that most doctors and psychologists studying this phenomena believe that the behavior is a social problem and not a mental or health problem with the cross-dresser, because it is society that has the negative feelings and the rejection about the behavior.
How do you react when you're out in public dressed as a woman and someone finds out that you're not a woman?
Very embarrassed.
Yeah.
Very embarrassed.
What is the frequency of needing to dress like this? Does it...
Yeah, how often do you do
It varies with each individual, anywhere, like Phyllis was saying, from daily to monthly to semi-annually.
Convenience.
Yeah, that's another thing.
And this range, how are you feeling that day that you decide to dress as a woman? I mean, what occasions prompt you to
Generally
want to do
pretty
this?
tense, pretty nervous, problems, pressures, yes.
You also
And
do this for
looking forward to what
pleasure
you're doing,
reasons.
though.
It's a kick. You're talking about the risk of being out in public. That is also a high that you get. The adrenaline. You're fooling people. You're walking around.
But isn't there a
looking
fear
at you.
factor here too?
Well, but it's a fear of the tightrope walker. He knows if he makes the wrong step, he's off. But if he does it right, everything is, there's a terrific high of doing it right on the edge. And this is
But most that go out go into safe areas.
you try to be wise when you do
You don't
that.
go out wearing after 5 and
with-
go to JCPenney for shopping.
With the fear of discovery when you're out in public, too, understand that we don't want to make a public scene or create a situation.
wanna
We just
blend.
want to pass and blend.
Are you there? Hi.
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead.
I found out right before Christmas that I came home unexpectedly from shopping and I found my husband dressed up. And the thing is, he won't talk about it at all. He just told me he's not going to do it anymore.
Well, he will do it again, but you need to get him to talk.
He's got to talk.
He's got to talk because there's feelings inside of him that he's now repressing, and he needs to let them out. He needs to tell you, and he has to tell himself that he is what he is.
And the more that he, as a cross-dresser, suppresses the behavior, the more violently it will flare up.
What did he say when you
Well, he just left the house, and then he came back that night. And I tried to talk about it. And like I said, he just told me he's not going to do it anymore.
How long have you been married?
8 years.
And this is a total shock to you. You had no suggestion of this.
None at all.
I think, Phil,
I ruined my Christmas.
You ruined your Christmas.
I
understand that.
Just think about it.
The caller's story is a very typical story with real tragic consequences. Probably her husband feels that if he were to reveal the extent of the cross-dressing, she would leave him. And these guys make bargains with themselves. They throw out entire wardrobes worth thousands of dollars.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a real binge purge
Yes.
kind
Yeah.
of business.
So there's been no commentary on this since the incident.
No, I told him I wouldn't leave him. We talked, I talked to him, even though he wouldn't talk to me, and I told him I wouldn't leave him and that I loved him.
He's got an
Like I said,
insecurity about himself. That
I think that the caller right now is in a stage where I was 3 years ago, and I'd like to suggest something to the caller and to everyone else out there in the audience and in the audience in the United States as a whole. We have support networks. Yes. I am part of a women's support group, a very large group. We are nationwide. The logo for Tri-Ess, which is our national organization, Chicago-based organization, will be up on the screen.
Yeah, I'll be happy to show you that.
And know that we're there, and also that there's support for your husband.
I had to break there. My apologies to you all. I'm just curious to know, you still love him?
Yes.
Your feelings about him haven't changed?
No. I'm just scared because I don't know as far as if he's homosexual at all and with disease and everything. That makes me nervous.
Yeah.
That's normal to feel
the
that way.
literature here suggests that he probably is not. Some are, but most are not.
Uh-huh.
You have no children?
We have one, yes.
I apologize for having to break here. I have no choice. I appreciate your call.
Thank you.
And we'll be back in a moment. Hi, thanks for waiting. Go ahead.
Hello, Phil?
Yeah.
I just want to let the men on that stage know that they are actually living a lie. And as long as they are living a lie, they can have no fellowship with God. They need the love of Jesus in their life. That is what is missing. The Holy Word, the scriptures of God's Bible, is what they need in their life.
Well,
I love Jesus very much.
Yeah, I think their point is that the lie is failing to acknowledge this interest. And that's what they think is crippling. Yes?
I was just going to ask the question the same as what the gentleman asked on religion, if it played an important factor in the house. Does it interfere
It's not
at
a
all?
religious matter. the cross-dressing doesn't involve going to church or not going to church.
This is not a question of
right.
morals.
Yes.
I love my Lord and my Maker. Believe
I
him.
think it's terribly unfair of you to have married women in your life way back when. I don't know how many of you are married, to have married them and not told them this in
All
the
my
very
wives
beginning.
knew about it.
You're right.
All my wives
When you first got married? Before you asked them to marry you?
Before I was married to both
and
my
discuss children in your life in the future, and
yes.
you know, honey, can I borrow your clothes? I mean, and
No.
you guys seem to be full blown with this thing, with the hair, with the nails, to the crossing of the legs. And I think there's feminine tendencies here, and I think you should go see a psychiatrist.
We practice. Practice makes perfect.
Women dress up like men. They don't let their hair grow on their legs
That's
for
right.
3 weeks. It comes off their hair.
That was the point I was making earlier.
Understand that not all of us need
I have
to
a
dress
question
to
for the
perfection.
doctor. You said that there is a female character wanting to come out in
Yes.
these men. Could it be split personality?
No. It is a different phenomenon. With personalities, there is less consciousness and deliberateness. This is a very deliberate, conscious behavior.
Hollywood has two themes of the transvestite. They're either schizophrenic people who, when they dress up, go out and blast people away because they're, that makes them loony, or they're some kind of professional hitman, and this is how they can sneak up on people unawares. And they were the most peaceful, unobtrusive, mild-mannered people you can imagine.
Hi,
We don't
thanks
want
for waiting. Go ahead.
Mr. Donahue.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I am calling because I am an American Indian, and I resent the implication that these people have implied that American Indians have dressed this way. Furthermore, I feel that this is a tremendous
I don't
form
think
of
we're
child
implying-
abuse and neglect. You know, as far as these men go, I feel that they should all grow up and dress as men.
We're not implying that they dress that way. The question, the answer to that question was, is this a problem of any particular ethnic group or religion or denomination? And it's not. It covers all aspects of life.
This is like implying that John Wayne used to dress up as a man. Now, this is an American legend.
You better watch it.
Yeah. We do thank you for setting the record straight. The last thing we want to do is create more problems
Phil,
for...
I'd like to address the issue that the lady in the audience brought up about the unfairness to the wives, because I think that's something that's going through a lot of women's minds, and I know it went through mine. And I think the thing that women have to understand is the fear factor. Here's a man who fell in love with a woman. If I tell her, will she reject me? And he tried to tell me 100 times and didn't have the courage. And then when he did tell me, he said to me, would you have turned me away 7 years ago before we were married? And I had to look him straight in the face and say, I don't know. I was a different person when we were married than when I was told. And I think that it's not a question of wanting to keep it secret from some malicious reason, but simply because it's being afraid.
Hi, thanks for waiting.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, I was wondering, what do their co-workers think where they work? Do they know that they dress like this? Do they tell them? Do they ever see them? Now that they're on TV, and naturally they will see them, but what do they think of it?
I think the situation varies. In my case, my regional manager knows that I am a cross-dresser. It doesn't appear to make any difference in our business relationship and how we view each other. I know this varies among people because there is a certain element of risk as far as job is concerned.
I have two friends at work who know, and it doesn't matter.
Have you ever been caught?
I have.
What happened?
Well, it got me out of the Navy prematurely.
It did.
They didn't take kindly to this, and it's hard to dress as a woman on a ship, I can tell you that.
that would be...
And get away with it. But I escaped that. I was caught by my brother once, and he has said nothing about it since, and neither have I. And I hope to leave it that way.
And we'll be back in just a moment. Who's this look like? Tootsie.
That's me.
I'm sure you've heard that before, Deanna. Hi, go ahead.
Hi, I just want to let you know that I knew someone 10 years ago, a good friend, that was a cross-dresser. And when he first told me, I was shocked. But I think it's up to the individual, not for society to judge them.
This, by the way, is not new.
Let me just I got so
Shirley.
much energy.
Bill, this gentleman in gray, what, you said you married a number of...
Twice.
Was this problem what caused the breakup of your marriages?
No, I did not divorce my first wife because I was a cross-dresser. I divorced her for other reasons. But my second wife, I told prior to the marriage, and she is very supportive and understanding and would have been here today but had to work.
I would just like to make a comment to Bonnie. I would like to take my hat off to her for being so understanding for her husband. I don't think I could do it, but, you know.
You'd be surprised what you find down inside when faced with it.
I just want to know if they changed their names, like when they are these people, you know, these women. The one said his name is Lee, so it really doesn't matter. But the other
I'd look
people on
quite
the panel.
foolish being called George or Fred.
Yeah.
Boy George.
Yes. We create a femme name, yes.
Oh,
I don't think all women feel threatened necessarily. I think a lot of women's response is, this is a big problem. If my husband was doing this, I would view it as a big problem and want to get help.
We're not trying to say it's not.
It's a pragmatic problem, yes.
Something very interesting you mentioned earlier. Men more now are having their hair styled. I have my fingernails done. I don't perceive that to be gay, but the majority of men that I know perceive it to be. What is your feeling on that?
Well, grooming is something that men are finally starting to pick up on. I get my hair permed every 3 months and love my beautician, but she doesn't know about Deanna.
I usually, when I'm working, do sometimes have transparent nail polish on, and I notice it does attract attention.
I have to put on nails because my work destroys them.
What will be interesting is to see if in the next 10 years, if we have the incidence of cross-dressing that you see here, because society's becoming more open. We're allowed to share our feelings more.
Yes.
What happens when you go out? Do men try to make passes or try to pick you up? And how do you deal with that situation?
Just how women deal when you make passes at them.
This young man wants you to know that he only engages in voluntary.
I'm not your
Do
type,
you also
buddy.
disguise your voices when you go into public?
We try.
It's difficult to disguise it. I don't.
Do you think that maybe we're so caught up in feminism that you have like a subconscious jealousy to want to be a woman?
No, because it's been going on for years. We have a cross-dresser in our organization that's 80, and he's been cross-dressing for 55 years.
My mother told me about a cross-dressing in her little town in Texas back in the 1920s. A supposed married couple. This was a gay cross-dresser, obviously.
And when we were in Tombstone, Arizona, I took a picture of a female impersonator in the Birdcage Cafe or whatever it was in 1886, who also turned out to be a bank robber.
Over here, please.
I'm still very confused. You know, we keep talking about this behavior that you dress up. Could you give us a little bit more insight into, like, the feelings behind it?
Why don't we let the doctor do this?
Well, I can't speak for them, but I think what does happen is that there is a compulsion, which is a very strong compulsion that says somehow I have to let Deanna out or Lee out or whatever. Interestingly, one of the things we have not touched upon is that very often the cross-dressing begins with an erotic sexual attachment. Sure. And then as these women age, that becomes less necessary. People will dress and not necessarily masturbate, not necessarily want to have a sexual experience. It becomes more integrated into the total persona. But to talk about how across the board people cross-dress would be misleading you, because each one of these women will have a different story about when they dress, how completely, and then what they do when they dress.
Every discussion of this winds up in pigeonholing. Type A, Type B, Type C.
Yes.
The people who are in it work out elaborate philosophies to explain it to themselves, and then they try to force it on the next cross-dresser that they make. And it doesn't work.
I'll give you one example of how it has helped me since I've been out of the closet. My own self-esteem and opinion of myself has improved, and this has directly been experienced on the job. I'm getting more sales for the company, and I feel better about talking to people.
And it's improved his marriage.
Mariette Allen joins us. You're working, Ms. Allen, on a book of photos or so.
Photographs and interviews of, I'm calling The Woman Who Lives Inside, Portraits of Men as Women.
That's the title.
Yes.
Let's see just some of your work here.
Yes.
Briefly. Can you see that up there?
Yes, I can. I have been focusing recently a lot on families. And one of the points that I really would like to make is that we've been all talking about this as a problem and as something to be upset about. Actually, I see it as an opportunity. This is not a tragedy. This is
I think these men have a greater and richer life for it.
They do if they come to grips with the behavior and get rid of the guilt. I think, obviously, that's the big liberating feature of...
Absolutely.
And this is the ultimate expression of togetherness, going public with this on a television program.
That's correct.
And we'll be back in just a moment. Tri-Ess is at Post Office Box 2055 in Des Plaines, Illinois, 60017. Tri-Ess is an organization that, of cross-dressers intended to help those who not only are drawn to this behavior, but those people who are troubled by it, who may love them.
Our 3 S's are Society for the Second Self. Tri-Ess, Society for the Second Self.
Art and Illusion is a guide to cross-dressing, which you have put together, hey? And this, what, is an attempt to just tell them how to make up their eyes?
Well, it's a little bit of everything. It's some philosophy. One of the problems with cross-dressers when they decide that they want to really get into this behavior is they end up dressing like tramps. There is a mental image of a woman inside that...
They look like hookers.
Yeah, they usually look like hookers. And what I've attempted to do here is...
Now we're going to hear from the hookers and say, wait a minute.
Basic guidelines for makeup and how to pick the right size clothes and how to figure out, you know, what size shoes you wear and those kinds of things. I have lots of that.
I have a question. Where most of you are divorced or not married, the other couple at the end is married. She said their marriage was just okay, they hardly talked. Now when he came out of the closet, so-called, the relationship so much better, they've gotten closer. Do you feel maybe you had an attraction to women and were unaware of it?
No, not at all. I think the problem in the marriage prior to coming out of the closet was lack of communication, and I think that was based on the fact that Rhonda simply had not yet accepted herself.
And not having known for 7 years, our sexual relationship was well established even before we were married, so it had nothing to do with that.
Lots of wisdom here.
When I have a child, and when I decided to have a child, I decided to do the best I could. Now, I have to say that if one of you gentlemen were my father, I don't think that I could grow up to be a normal, happy person. Certainly, there are a lot of things that we might want to do, but isn't there, you know, we need to be responsible when we have children and to
The girl children are more accepting of their father dressing up, but not living in a situation like that, it'd be very difficult for you to say that, especially with the love and admiration you do have for your father.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to know, as the lady said, what's going to become of the children? In 20 years, is your psychotic child going to be the perpetrator of my innocent victim?
They don't think that
I don't have any psychotic children, so I wouldn't know.
I think I would be if I had to look at my father in fingernails and dresses every day.
Well, wait a minute. First of all, the children don't see their father dressed that way every day. In fact, the children have never seen that.
If I just saw it once, then I would even be more worried, because I know there was a problem.
I would hope that regardless of what my son grows up to be, that I would be able to accept him.
Regardless of that, I just hope
as a
that
person
some
for
innocent
whatever he
victim
is.
isn't going to be the byproduct of your son's madness from
Over here. Please let me. Yes.
Quickly, I'd like to applaud the 4 individuals. I think if you're strong enough to be here today, you're probably strong enough to lead a very healthy, good life in a lot of ways, and you've got a lot of honesty, and I applaud you for it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
To keep hurting people to get drugs, then they should be applauded too?
Yeah.
You may not be living sexually active homosexual. When you're dressed as women, do you not have some inclination toward men? What is your sexual orientation when you take on a woman's name and a woman's makeup?
I believe that you would be interested in this behavior without having some sort of feeling.
We want to look like a woman, not be a woman.
Right. My desire is to be accepted as a woman by other women.
Yeah. Over here.
What do your friends think in the summer when they see that your legs are shaved and stuff like that?
The hair grows out.
Yeah. None of their
Most people don't notice.
How would you feel if your father came home and you saw him dressed as a...
Couldn't answer that question, but I hope I would love him enough.
Yeah. Do any of you ever want to be treated? Is there any such thing as a cure for this type of thing?
There is no cure.
There is no cure.
Everybody has fantasies in their lives,
Exactly.
but what about good old-fashioned self-control that we all exert on ourselves?
It doesn't work with this kind of compulsive behavior.
Society is falling into this. They're accepting someone
And that's the trouble. The more tolerant we become, pretty soon everybody's going to be weird.
Men's You'll find, if you go to the a men's store, you'll find sweaters. You're not sure if they're for women or for men.
I know, and
they're lovely colors.
And that's
I think
great.
they're beautiful.
When I can't tell whether it's for a guy or a gal, I think that's great.
Bill, is there any chance of this behavior running its course, or will they continue this into old age?
This behavior will last as long as the human animal roams the earth. We promise you that, and we'll be back in just a moment. Look at this. This is your photo, Marriott, up there. That's this male in front of the picture, him as a child with his mother in the portrait. You wanted to say, Bonnie?
I wanted to say that we're here not just for our own exposure, but as an educational enterprise. And there are literally thousands of women and men out there who need support, who need someone to talk to, who need help. Please, get a hold of Tri-Ess, get a hold of us, talk to someone.
Services
Confide in
provided
each
and
other
promotional
confide in
fees
us. Let
paid by
us
the
help.
following.
We're here.